Peak Wealth Management proudly presents the Trust the Plan podcast with Nick Hopwood and Jim Pilat, where we believe by providing education and guidance, we can help you retire with peak confidence. Now, here are your certified financial planners, Nick and Jim.
Welcome to the Trust the Plan podcast. I'm Nick.
And I'm Jim.
Jim, Christmas is coming.
It is. It'll be here before we know it.
I'm sure that you have all your gifts and everything purchased and it's all wrapped under the tree.
Oh yeah, I'm on top of it. No, I got a little work to do in the Christmas shopping area, but looking forward to everybody being back home, having college kids back home and stuff like that. So it'll be nice.
Excellent. Okay, so today I want to remind you probably already missed it, but the first Wednesday of each month we are hosting with Ryan Ermanni on WJR the No Lazy Money Show from 7 to 8 p.m. the first Wednesday of each month. So tune in. Mm-hmm. Today, Jim, we're going to be talking about the concept start with why. And this is something we've talked about before. In fact, I believe it was episode 12, if I'm not mistaken, where I first did that. It was before
you were here. Yeah.
So like 10 years ago. So Start with Why is a book or a concept and a book from Simon Sinek. First saw the concept on his YouTube video, which was a TED Talk, in fact. So the idea was people don't buy, I wrote it down here. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Mm-hmm. So people don't work with us because we can help you invest in mutual funds and ETFs. They buy us why we do it, right? Mm-hmm. So they might not realize it, but they buy why we do it. And so I want to ask you, Jim, how did you end up here? Why do you do what you do? What's your story? What's behind, the mask, right?
Yeah. I have I've been doing this only for the last, I think, 12, 13 years now. So this is not my first career, but I always grew up loving this stuff. I grew up loving watching CNBC and seeing the stocks scroll by. It was in the tech bubble is when I was getting into it, and it was fun to watch everything go up all the time because that's pretty much what happened back then. Really had a lot of great conversations with my dad about this. He was the one who talked a lot about, you got to save, got to invest, let's buy some mutual funds, let's buy some stocks, and really got me kind of hooked on it.
So you remember him teaching you those things maybe in high school or...
Yeah, growing up, he had it on when we were young all the time. But yeah, through high schools, when you start having a little deeper conversations and a little more meaningful and starting to understand, what we're doing, why we're doing it. And again, reinforcing that with seeing it happen for myself. He encouraged me to open that brokerage account and all that kind of stuff. So, just always had a real interest in it, but didn't, actually thought about getting into it right out of college. But it was back in the late 90s, and it was a different business back then, and I kind of cold called, walked into a Dean Witter office, who doesn't even exist anymore. I think they're part of Morgan Stanley now. But it was the guy just, puffing a cigarette, giving me a phone book saying, this is what it'll look like. You're going to call everybody in this book A to Z. You're going to try to sell them stocks. It's, commission business and blah, blah, blah. And it didn't resonate with me and it didn't feel right. And so I didn't pursue that path and decided to get into medical sales, which I did. My dad was actually in that business as well, so that was another opportunity that provided some really good conversation around, now we're working. Now we have a 401k. Now we need to add to it and all those kind of things. But that was where my interests were, and soon after I started working with my dad actually in the medical sales business. It was about a little over a year into it, he actually got sick. And, after a couple hospital visits and everything, we found out we were dealing with leukemia. And he battled that for 10 months and passed away at the age of 55. So he was young. My mom was even younger at 53. And here I was thinking I knew all about these investments and all this stuff already, but now she had real decisions to make, and she didn't know if she could stay in her house, and she didn't know if she had to go back to work, and all these really big questions. So I, realized I couldn't really help beyond understanding what the investments were, and knew we needed some financial advice. So we went and sought out some different companies and talked to some different people, and thankfully I knew enough to to see what was a good advice and what was bad advice. And I was just astounded at how much bad advice was out there.
Give me an example of bad advice.
She was young, right? And she needed access to money. And we got pitched annuities several times where they were going to lock up money for 10 years or have big withdrawal penalties if she needed to get it. And that just didn't seem right. And in hindsight, knowing more about the business, I just think it was a terrible recommendation. Things like that is what stood out to me, but I knew she wasn't getting the advice that we needed. We didn't need to know what stocks to buy and what mutual funds to invest in. We needed to know financial planning questions. We needed to know if she was on track, if she was okay. So those are some of the important things that they rarely got into, right? They often just wanted to talk about the investments. So I continued in my career for years. We settled on a advisor that, was helpful in it, So I went back into medical publishing, did that for several more years. But as the big business began to change and my family started to grow, I realized I didn't want to travel as much. And naturally, I always still had this interest in financial planning and decided to pursue that. So got into that with a couple different companies over the years, but obviously longest tenure here at Peak. Nick and I met, what was it, back in?
Probably like 2014.
Yeah, and then started talking about kind of joining up together and me joining Peak in 2017-18 timeframe. So, and been here ever since.
And so one thing that stood out to me with what you just said was you were interested in the investments back in the day, right? Like a lot of people start out attracted to the investments and investing in stocks and in funds and so forth. But the way that you pivoted with your career and the decisions that you had to make with your mother made you realize that the planning was so important.
Yeah.
And so now that you are a practitioner, right, you've remembered that and really led with planning.
Yeah, and thanks for directing it back to that, because ultimately, that's kind of how I got into the business, but the why of it all is because I want to be that resource for people that need help making good decisions. People that don't know where to turn, don't know what to do, don't know if they're okay, but they need somebody they can trust, and that experience taught me early on that not all advisors are going to give you advice that's in your best interest. Sometimes it's in their best interest. And that's, I just find that really frustrating and really unfortunate, but that was always my goal getting into this business. I wanted to be that person that people could look to trust, to say, I know he's telling us that because he thinks that's what's best for us.
That's a great story. It resonates with me for sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so do you have any questions for me about similar things?
Yeah, I think understanding people's why is great. So I'd love to hear your why and what caused you to get into the business.
Yeah, so originally I was looking at my bank statement. I had some jobs, in middle school, high school, and I noticed that my bank account was earning 1 penny per month. And I thought, I had learned about interest, right? So I thought, well, something's wrong here. We should be earning more than this. So I asked my mom, and she set up an appointment with her financial advisor, who happened to be my girlfriend's dad.
Okay.
So he came over, and he's like, here's what you're going to do. You're going to open up this American Funds account. Put like $500 that I had saved into a custodial account, like a UGMA type account. And now all of a sudden, we're in the 90s. Every day it's going up, right? So I saw, hey, this is really working, right? So I loved it. I really looked forward to getting my statement in the mail. We didn't have, AOL in '95.
Right.
Like
you had to
the
go
cool
to the
kids had
newspaper
it.
to look it up. Yeah.
The rich kids had AOL, but I didn't have it. But yes, I did look in the newspaper.
Yeah.
And I looked back there and was always looking at the price for sure. So that got me interested in the investments, kind of like what you were saying. Like you get attracted to that as the initial point. But then as I started to get older, I looked at my family and people that I was really close to, people I loved, and people making terrible financial decisions, right? To the point where retirement was at risk, right? So you're gonna have to work forever, kind of a thing, because you're not saving and you're not making these planning decisions and not understanding the consequences of this or that action. And so ultimately, I ended up in college getting an internship at American Express Financial Advisors, and I started seeing that how this was working with dozens and dozens of clients at that practice, I really enjoyed seeing how the advisor could make a recommendation, and now all of a sudden their plan is fixed, kind of a thing. Of course, they have to take the advice, right? But ultimately, I didn't realize this until I read the Simon Sinek book, is that my why is to help people not be like my dad, right? So my dad also passed away from leukemia, coincidentally, but I was terrified and worried about his retirement. He had to work till he was like 72, and then he passed away at 76. And, so he didn't get to enjoy a long retirement. But really, what's sad for me is that I would have loved to see him have a longer retirement, retiring sooner, right?
Right.
And so my why is to help our clients not be in a position like he was in, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's kind of dark. But really, we've learned from hundreds of cases that we've witnessed ourselves what the right decisions are and what decisions are poor, and so we can help our clients make those good decisions so they can retire with peak confidence. And that's really the mission statement as well. We want to provide that education and guidance so you can make great decisions so you can retire with peak confidence. So that's the why.
Yeah, I think looking back at personal experience and now, having the knowledge of being in this business, you probably would have recommended a dozen things for your dad to do along the way. So kind of looking at each person coming in and trying to help them avoid those same mistakes, is really a great way to.
And, Jim, you mentioned, help them give good advice, help them make good decisions. But one thing that is really important with an advisor, of course you can say, go do this or go do that, but you have to inspire them to actually do it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's hard, right? It's easy for me to say, hey, you need to max out your 401. It's much more difficult for you to log into your 401 and actually change that to be the max, because now you're going to get a smaller paycheck.
Right.
So we have to be giving the good advice and inspiring you to take action.
Yeah. Not just be passionate about giving it, but passionate about helping them implement it and to take those action steps to actually make it happen.
Exactly. So if you have a portfolio of $1 million and you are thinking about what are good decisions that I need to make, what am I thinking about for retirement, reach out to us at peakwm.com for a second opinion.
Peak Wealth Management thanks you for watching and listening to the Trust the Plan podcast, featuring certified financial planners Nick Hopwood and Jim Pilat. If you enjoyed our program, please subscribe and share. If you'd like to learn more about our services, please visit peakwm.com. peakwm.com today. See you next week.